Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Night in Washington County, their quorum court met. And they met to approve a budget, and they also met to raise millage, raise taxes on the people of Washington County, and that whole process failed. The budget failed. They decided against raising property taxes, and they failed to make the cuts that they need to make because apparently, for some reason, if you go read the Scarlett Sims piece, listen to this. Property taxes failed to make significant cuts to stop a $5 million gap between spending and revenue. So somebody is spending more than what's coming in. Joining us now to talk a little bit more about that, I've got somebody, a friend of the program, been on the program many times, young conservative. We have Patrick Deakins is on the line, and he was at that quorum court meeting in the audience last night. Patrick, welcome back to the program, sir.
Thanks, Paul. It's great to be able to talk to you, and I always enjoy being on the show on Johnny Cash Friday.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it's one of my favorite days, to do the show. All right, so tell us a little bit about, what was the atmosphere there? Because I heard, the reason I reached out to you to see if you wanted to come on today is because I heard that the atmosphere was interesting, to say the least. And it really all had to do with whether or not the quorum court was going to raise taxes. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I would say the only silver lining of last night was that the property taxes were not raised. I would say starting the meeting out, I felt pretty somber. I thought the feeling was pretty somber. If you were in the crowd, I think you got the feeling that the budget was going to get passed. And as a direct result of that, if they passed the budget, they would also, they would have had to increase the mills to get the property tax revenue up. So as the process went on and the budget came up as the agenda item, it got very interesting because it did not take long for anyone in the crowd to realize that there was no business having that budget as an agenda item on that meeting last night. The justices of peace were not prepared for that. There was a lot of contention in the room over some certain things. There were some amendments that were made to try to reduce spending. They all failed. They were voted down. And so I think at that point it galvanized a lot of the members of the quorum court to defeat the budget, which I don't know how precedented that is. I thought it was pretty unprecedented myself. But so Washington County hangs out today without a budget for next year so far.
That's a big deal. Do you know what the vote was? You know how close it was or anything?
Yes. The budget fell the first time on a vote of 8-6. There's 15 justices of the peace in Washington County. I don't know if that's common everywhere, but one was absent, so that was a sustained vote. And then I believe the second time around, it was an even tie, 7-7.
Wow.
They voted. The meeting turned into an absolute circus. Paul, I am so embarrassed for my county. I'm embarrassed for the government. I'm embarrassed for the process. They voted the budget down once, and then they had some discussion, and the quorum court members decided, well, maybe we didn't really mean that. Maybe we really didn't mean to vote it down. Let's reconsider it.
What?
So they brought it up. They brought it up for a second vote. Yes, it was defeated again. Which, when it got defeated, the chairman of the budget committee then immediately resigned, which threw the meeting into a little bit more chaos, because then the vice chairman of the budget committee had to introduce the next agenda item, which these last two agenda items were, of course, the budget and then the raising of the millage or raising of the taxes. So
the maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us on this Tuesday before Thanksgiving. My name is Paul, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a liberty machine, and we want you to be a part of that. One of the ways you can do that is to text me today. The number is 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Or you can sound off on our Facebook live feed over at facebook.com/Paul Talk Show, as well as the YouTube page. We got a good show for you today. Got a lot of content. A lot of stuff came out in the news today that is, how are we not supposed to talk about some of this stuff? Now, the first thing, well, let me just say this. We talked about the bonds, the corporate welfare that was going to Fort Smith. We're going to talk about that in the first hour. Silgan Plastics, $38 million in incentives. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. Also coming up at the bottom of this hour, we have a Conduit for Commerce policy segment. Then we also want to talk about the government potentially intimidating people into submission. Arkansas story about somebody giving up on a use permit for a wedding business. I thought that was interesting. At the top of the next hour, you're going to want to be here for that. Governor Asa Hutchinson was on AETN last night at 7. I was trying to get many of the people listening to this program to call in and to text, and it was I don't know if they did, but from the clips that I have of Asa on AETN, people were asking about enhanced carry or Second Amendment, and his answer on that is going to send Second Amendment folks and our good friends at Patriots Fact 746, their heads are going to spin if they haven't already heard it. But he also talked about roads, okay? Governor Asa Hutchinson also talked about roads last night and how we need to fund them. And he said we've got to raise revenue. And I have the audio of that, and we're going to play it for you at 5 o'clock, okay? He said a lot of things, but I'm telling you right now, if there is not a new brain trust inside the state Republican Party, we are going to witness Republicans continue to raise taxes on the people of Arkansas. And again, Asa Hutchinson wants to raise your taxes. Asa Hutchinson has raised your taxes, and he has grown government. Now, he will say he's cut your taxes by $100 million 1 year, which is nothing, by the way, and $50 million the next year, which, again, is not very much money considering the $5 billion budget or the $27 billion it takes to run this state. What happens to government, and we said this yesterday, it's very simple. If you cut taxes by $150 million but you increase spending by $500 million, has government grown or has it decreased in size? And that is the metric. That is the only metric. And Asa Hutchinson at the fiscal concept of what a conservative is, he's actually failed. And by the way, he's going to get Arkansas in a lot of trouble because if you lower taxes and you don't get spending under control, what's the mainstream media going to do? They're going to claim conservatism was tried and it almost bankrupted the state. That's what they're going to claim when conservative ideas and limited government principles haven't been tried at all here. There's so much time that has been wasted, so much lost opportunity that has been wasted. Now, speaking of roads, which we will talk more about at 5, I have a story here, and we don't have this. I only have this in print, and so I don't have the ability to show this and put this up on the screen. We do have that with our other articles coming up. Speaking of roads, there's a guy by the name of Art Hobson that penned a piece. I believe this was in the Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette, and I have it here in front of me. And he says that the governor's road response is actually excellent. Now, this has nothing to do with AETN. This just happens to do with the fact that a couple of weeks ago or a month or so ago, the governor came out and strongly said, we will not use money from general revenue for highways. And they basically because we have Medicaid expansion. Now, they're not going to tell you that. We have overcommitted to entitlement and welfare programs, and we don't have leaders that will go to the people and say, number one, if you're able to work, you are not entitled to free health care. That's the first thing. And number two, we simply can't afford it, okay? We really can't afford it if everybody who was able to work had a job, and we can't afford it. We're talking about now 1 million people out of 3 million on Medicaid. We simply cannot afford these type of numbers. And that's why we don't have money for roads. Now, what ACE is going to say is, well, we're not going to take that money out of the general revenue because we need money for education. And that's what they do. That is called pain point politics. Not, I'm going to admit I'm wrong and I've committed to these priorities that are not the priorities of average Arkansans. If you go and ask them issue by issue if they agree with welfare programs that are not for the truly needy, they would say, no, we don't agree with welfare programs for the truly needy. But the fact is, you've got corporations, you got hospitals, you got all the special interests who want it, and so that's what controls things down at the Marble Palace. This guy named Art Hobson pens a piece, Governor's Road Response Excellent. But what should Arkansas do now? He writes, Arkansas has annual highway needs totaling about $900 million, but only about $450 million available in highway allocations. The State Highway Commission, by the way, we voted for a bond issue back in 2012. I only say that for highways. We're already giving the government money to do the things they're supposed to be doing. Just keep that in mind. If they start talking about an internet sales tax or the tire tax they passed or the new tire tax they created or any of the other stuff, you need to say government is already humongous in Arkansas compared to our surrounding neighbors, and we're already giving you money to do these things. What are you wasting our money on? Leave us alone. We are overtaxed. We need relief. And this little tax farce, all you guys can talk about is where to get revenue from. And you want us to go along and hope, well, we'll grow government and we'll shrink it later. Trust us. We'll shrink it later. I don't trust you. I don't trust the current Republican leadership down there because they're doing everything. They're doing everything they can to not have to go on record opposing conservative principles in the Republican Party platform. Art Hobson goes on here in this piece. The State Highway Commission hoped to get some of the difference from other existing general state revenues. Governor Hutchinson's response was perfect. Quote, Governor Hutchinson said, "I want to be very plain-spoken today. I will vigorously oppose any plan that taps additional general revenues from our revenue stream. These are funds that are necessary for education, pain point politics, public safety, pain point politics, and for all other needs of our state, Medicaid expansion. And so I say no, we cannot divert that general revenue stream. That is an important principle that bears emphasizing today as we look at the new potential for a highway plan in the future." So the highway plan means we're going to have a highway plan. Well, didn't the governor just come up with one? Well, we need another highway plan. This time we need more money. Now this guy, Art Hobson, goes on to say that good government is often a matter of intelligent economics. I never thought of that. I've never heard that phrase before. You ever heard that phrase? Good government is a product of intelligent economics. Why not just economics? Isn't economics in and of itself a symptom of a higher functioning society? Isn't economics in and of itself intelligent? I mean, it's not sentient, but you know what I mean. But we need intelligent economics. I wonder if that's anything like the Republican Party establishment here in Arkansas buzzword that we need intellectual Republicans. You see, actually, a Republican by himself, okay, if you just go by the platform, it's pretty darn conservative. I think I can get behind some of these ideas. I am behind these ideas. I think they're good. An intellectual Republican. An intellectual Republican is that's a Republican that can go back home and with carefully crafted language artfully explain to their constituents why all the stuff they ran on isn't really a good idea. That's what an intellectual Republican is. Somebody who can deceive the people back home who voted for them into thinking you're actually looking at for their interest in doing and fulfilling the promises you campaigned on. That's what an intellectual Republican is. What about just a Republican? Why do we need intelligent economics? This guy here, Art Hobson. I don't know who you are, Art, but I don't know about you. I don't know about this piece here. Let me say that. I don't know if I agree with you. I don't agree with you, in fact. He says, good government is often a matter of intelligent economics. In the case of roads, U.S. drivers have always gotten too much of a free ride from government. Oh, my gosh. Now I do have a problem with you, Art. Government, how can the people get a free ride from government in the context of this? I mean, the government doesn't exist if we're not sending it money. It sounds to me like he thinks the government just, was here before us. He goes on, our unrealistically low gasoline price, around $2.50 at the pump, is the source of our hugely distorted national, state, and local transportation systems. Okay, so we got to have more money. They got to have more money. It's money. That's what it is. They're not wasting these resources. By the way, you know what, Art? Let me tell you something about intelligent economics, Art. You know what that means for road construction when gasoline prices are at record lows? Have you ever thought about that? Genius? Do you know what that means? Well, that means all of a sudden what it costs to build a road is now significantly less because diesel and gas prices don't cost as much. But you don't see the highway department coming back and saying, oh, wow, I mean, you should have a lot more money and resources because gas prices are cheap. Now, I'll concede that you're getting less revenue, on a percentage of tax or whatever because gas prices are low, but you're also making out good when you go to construct those roads. That is intelligent economics or just economics. Okay? All right, hang on. What's up next? He goes on and says, we've been getting the free ride, low gasoline prices, government. We've been taking we're the ones who we're taking advantage of government. Not people on welfare. We're not taxed enough, and so we're the ones taking advantage of government. Unbelievable. He goes on. Listen to this. By the way, I want to remind you that this guy is writing a piece agreeing with Asa Hutchinson. Okay? This guy is writing a op-ed praising Asa Hutchinson. Art Hobson is his name. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I disagree with him. He says, typical European prices, such as Germany's $6.25 per gallon, is slightly more realistic, although still far below the real cost of driving in our car-centric system. Oh, wow, car-centric system. You mean America? Yeah, car-centric system. You mean like our way of life and we know no different? He goes on, America has the industrialized world's worst transportation system, and our low price of gasoline is a primary reason. Motorized transportation comprises mostly cars, buses, trains, and planes. Compared with peer nations, our highways are congested and crumbling. Buses are rare outside of big cities. Passenger rail is sluggish and rare, and airports are congested and burdened by our lack of rail connections, forcing one to either drive or fly from northwest Arkansas to, say, Little Rock, Dallas, or St. Louis. With a rail system such as China's, for example, it would be a 3-hour train ride to St. Louis's city center, including a connection in Kansas City. Hey, Art, I don't want to ride trains, okay? Okay, first of all, Art, you're a liberal. You agree with Asa Hutchinson? You're a liberal. You think he's doing a good job. Let me just tell you something right now. Obama made these same arguments. He said, we need a rail system like China. And he would talk about China's rail system. Listen. That is a regression, okay? I like the freedom of being able to get in my own personal car with my family or my friends and drive where I want to go. I don't want to ride a train. Most people don't want to ride on trains, and they certainly don't want to be forced to ride on trains. A rail system is a regression, in my opinion. And, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people that want to ride on trains, okay? And they can go ride on trains. But this is about incentivizing or the government trying to nudge you out of your car, and he's hoping for higher gas prices. What kind of person hopes that for their countrymen? Honestly, do you not understand that people are giddy right now because gas prices are so affordable? But this is what he says that really gets me, and then we're going to have to go to break. He goes on, again, praising the governor. He says, Northwest Arkansas highways seem to be colored mostly orange these days. It's hard to find one that's neither crumbling nor under repair. Our car-centered system is obviously unsustainable, yet we continue throwing money at it. The solution is not more lanes on Interstate 49, but mass transit. There you go. According to this guy, Asa's sound decision-making. I'm just thinking this is this is just an out-of-touch liberal agreeing with Asa Hutchinson about our funding solutions and our funding systems concerning roads. And by the way, stay tuned at 5 o'clock. I'm going to play some audio I have from AETN and Asa Hutchinson saying that we've got to raise revenue for our roads. And guess what? That means they're coming after your pocketbooks. They want more money. Folks, it's the Paul Harrell program. It's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I know everybody's getting excited. Tomorrow's a lot of people's big travel day, but I'll be here. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment.
This is Mother Government. My people. The promised revenue gathering to fund my motherly goals, such as the Arkansas Works, Obamacare, private option has commenced. I have asked my representatives and senators to execute my will concerning new revenues, from the tires you use to drive on my roads, the candy and sodas you consume and purchase in my stores, and the digital products you download on my internet. Your sacrifices and tributes, which are owed, display a measure of obedience, but there are still collectible sacrifices I require from the people to increase the work and size of our great government of Arkansas. There are two matters left unresolved. 1. I require a general tribute for all purchases made on my internet. Not just digital products, but all products. My dear children, there are those who would thwart my motherly goals of progress. If you see them, please combat their misguided notions of freedom by using phrases like mom and pop, and tax cheat. 2. I still require more revenue sacrifices concerning your consumption of my gasoline. I require your undying loyalty on the subject. Subjects in conclusion. More revenue is good. Static revenue is bad. This message was brought to you by your stewards, aristocrats serving Arkansas. Thank you, my children, in advance for your required and expected obedience that keeps society safe and prosperous. And always remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group. Fighting dependency on government so Arkansas can be the land of opportunity once again. Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, folks, welcome back. As we move on here, let's see, what time is it? Okay, we're going to have a hard break here in just a moment. I'm producerless. I'm sure those of you, those can tell, so I'm having to run software and do a radio program at the same time. So adding the visual for me is actually really, really, really difficult. And I want to remind you, so here in Arkansas, I kind of alluded to the fact that it was a percentage on your gas tax, and that is not accurate. Although many local option taxes are the cents per gallon, some percentages are of the purchase price. Okay, I've got this. Let's see here. If you look at, this is an old Talk Business article that just popped up here back on 2016, April 19th. This is when they're trying to make sure that we raise our taxes. Of course, they failed to do that. Arkansas gas tax below national average. Other states look to hike fuel taxes as pump prices fall, but we are the highest tax state around. Anyway. State-level taxes and fees on motor fuels in the U.S. averaged 26.5 cents per gallon as January 1st, and officials with some states are considering raising or lowering taxes, while regions are seeing pump prices below $2 a gallon. But just keep in mind, we're already a very high-tax state. See, that's what they don't want. You have to look at the totality of things. And hey, when we come back, I've already missed the story. I wanted to talk about intimidation, but we'll have to get to that later. Coming up next, we have a Conduit for Commerce policy segment. You do not want to miss this. How do we contain the growth of government? Now, this is a really good question. How do we contain the growth of government? Conduit for Commerce policy segment coming your way next. I'm going to try to answer that question, give you some ideas moving forward.
Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
The frustration level for me was just through the roof. I can't believe that's the process that our government goes through, and then that these people hold our taxes and, you know, our tax increases in their hands. It was just absolutely unbelievable.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing. We're talking with Patrick Deakins. He was in the room last night during the Washington County Quorum Court meeting, and the reason this was interesting to me is because there was a potential tax increase on the table, and it didn't materialize. So, correct me if I'm wrong. From what I'm hearing from you is they were going to vote on the budget, but if the budget would have passed, the millage tax increase was already kind of in the budget. And so instead of voting on the budget at first, did you guys have a discussion on whether or not taxes should be raised? That's the first question. Second question is, do you think, I mean, was it a partisan divide? Were there a lot of Republicans that were like, we're not going to raise taxes because that's not what the platform says? And were there people in the audience who, you know, are conservatives that maybe were putting pressure to make sure, you know, that the politicians vote the way they campaign?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. And that's one thing I want to say. I want to thank all the citizens of Washington County who reached out to their justices or were at the meeting last night and spoke up in the public comment section, because I think that did have an absolute effect. And some of the justices even commented to the fact of that their positions had probably changed. I got the idea in, you know, just the last few days on these issues of raising the taxes and the budget. You know, overall, I think it was very divided on party lines. Washington County, there's 15 Democratic justices and 10 Republicans. Now, those numbers are a little bit weird because, you know, some of those Republicans
now you said
are a little
15 and 10. Do you mean 15 and 5?
I'm sorry, five Democratic, 10 Republican for a total of 15 justices.
Okay.
My bad.
Okay. Go ahead.
So some of those Republicans are they lean a little bit more on the liberal side, from my personal opinion. So, you know, to me, this was not a slam dunk along party lines, but fortunately for us, the Republicans stood firm and didn't let the raise of taxes go through. I think what happened was there were some amendments made to the budget when they voted on it the first time, looking to reduce spending.
The Paul Harrell Program.
Happy pre-Thanksgiving, everyone. Pre-Thanksgiving, anybody out there? Yeah, so Arkansas's gas tax, 21.5 cents per gallon. Diesel tax is 22.5 cents. Do you know, according to this website, ArkansasGasPrices.com, there's a 0.3 cent per gallon. I'm sorry. Is that 3 cents? Yeah. There's 3 cents. No. 0.3. Yeah. So 0.3 cent per gallon environmental assurance fee that is assessed at the wholesale level for underground storage tank funds. So that's a whole thing. We were just talking about the gas tax and highways. We're going to talk more about it at 5, but I just wanted to set the record straight there. 21.5 cents. Now, here's the thing. The tax farce is actually thinking about adding a sales tax on top of that, because they say that gasoline is exempt from the sales tax because they tax it by the gallon. Now, wouldn't that be double taxation? I would certainly feel like it is, but they're thinking right now, as it stands, that it's actually an exemption. I mean, they're looking for revenue anywhere they can get it. I mean, that's all they can think about right now. Okay, let's see here. I just want to say this segment is brought to you by the great folks at Conduit for Commerce. Okay, that's you can go find out more. Here's the website, conduitforcommerce.org. They are putting Arkansas small business first, and they have this is a policy segment. We're going to go over how to contain government growth here. All right, before we do that, though, let's talk about the state of Arkansas government, okay? Look at this piece over at CFA. Now, this is from June of this year, June 7th of this year. You see that? A comparison of the size of Arkansas government and how much it costs taxpayers. This was a piece written by David Crow, who is a friend of this program and a patriot. And in this piece, we found out that in Arkansas, according to 2015 numbers, that we spend $7,935 per person versus contiguous states that only spend an average of $5,456 per person. Now, this was huge news, and this is something that establishment Republicans don't seem to want to try to fix, or they're not in a hurry to, because it would mean that they would be going against, the power structure that is. Then we can fast forward. Look at this. Going ahead a month or so, August, 2 months or so, August the 11th, of this year. Update, Arkansas government spending problem worse than first expected, than first thought, okay? And it says back in June, Conduit for Action posted an article, A Solution to Arkansas's Government Spending Problem, highlighting the recent out-of-control spending by the Arkansas state government, okay? And then we keep going down here and look at this first bullet point. On average, Arkansas spends over 59% more than its competitor states at around $7,674 versus the average $4,815 per person on these other states. Now, this is embarrassing. And how is it we're overtaxed? I mean, doesn't that make sense? We are the highest taxed state around, and we spend more per person. We spend more money per person than any other state around. I think there's a direct correlation there. The government is too wealthy. The government is too rich, and we're the poorer for it. Now, this is all kind of summarized. Dr. Jeremy Horpendahl from the Center for Research and Economics, who is a professor of economics at the University of Central Arkansas, he comes out on August the 8th, okay? There's nothing natural about the state of government spending in Arkansas, and that's where we find some of these more data like this. And the drivers of spending and growth, Arkansas spending increased by 97% from 1991 to 2013, even after adjusting for inflation and population growth. The state spends, again, here's those numbers again, $7,674 per person, 59% more than its competitor states. This is huge, okay? It's a big rebuke over what's been going on. Moving on to Conduit for Commerce, all the way back in January of, not 2017, 2015. These recommendations have been how to restrain government growth. These recommendations have been on Conduit for Commerce's website since 2015. It's pretty cool, right? You should go there, conduitforcommerce.org. Check out their policy positions. See right there? There they are. There's a lot of them. Okay. This act is intended to contain the growth of government by limiting government expenditures from year to year to the growth in inflation plus population. In addition, plus population. Hang on, let me put my little photo up there. There we go. In addition, there will be revenue limits restricting the raising of taxes. This method alone will not change the appropriations and budgeting process in Arkansas, but rather responsibly limit the total number of expenditures. This bill will prevent policymakers from increasing state spending that does not reflect voters, I love this, willingness to pay for government services. You know, what's funny is these guys in government, a lot of them, they pretend like that's not ever even a possibility. Why is it that people who work in government pretend that voters are always good with spending money on government services at the current level or an increase? And they'll always assume that voters don't want you to cut any of that money. I just think that's something to note. In effect, this limit gives the people of Arkansas control on how much they want government to spend, and legislators remain in control on what to spend the money on. It would prevent government from spending away everything it brings in. And remember, the last couple of weeks, that's exactly what happens. Everything that the government brings in, it spends right now. And it will return extra revenue back to the people. This is a responsible limit because it addresses the need to contain the growth in government as well, growth in government expenditures, as well as addressing the needs and providing services to a growing population and changing value of the dollar. A working formula would look like this. Expenditure limit equals the previous year expenditures plus the previous year's expenditures times inflation plus population growth. Okay? Now, I'm not a math guy. Anyone out there who knows me personally absolutely knows that. But even I can figure that one out. Okay? Expenditure limit. Well, hang on a second. Let me get down here. Expenditure limit equals the previous year's expenditures plus the previous year's expenditures times inflation plus population growth. Again, not a math guy. Don't know a lot about math. Me and a couple family members this weekend, we got together and we were like, hey, let's all four just take an IQ test. Not separately. We wanted the four of our intellects to combine. And I did really good on the word stuff, believe it or not. And I did surprisingly well in the math, the math problems. I knew what was going on. Not so hot on the sequential number questions, and really had a hard time with the shapes. I don't know if you've ever taken an IQ, or at least I'm assuming it was an online IQ test. I'm assuming this is what IQ tests are. The shapes just made my head hurt so bad. Anyway, but I pretty much reinforced that I'm still not a math guy. I don't know, but the words stuff just leapt off the page. I mean, it was just instant. Knew all that stuff. Anyway, so inflation in this bill over at Conduit for Commerce would mean the percentage change in the Consumer Price Index, or the CPI, in the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index. Population growth would mean the annual federal census estimates. See, the reason they're putting this in there is they're trying to make it as simple as they can for legislators that might want to pick this up and run with it, okay? The power to change this limit should be placed in the hands of the people rather than legislators. Legislatures have incentives to continue government growth and spending by providing loopholes, exemptions, special considerations that would undermine the limit. Measures that legislators can work around do not restrain spending. So they're saying that even if they did this, if legislators did it, it'd be carefully crafted language and they'd make it sound conservative, kind of like how Asa likes to say he was for the Second Amendment and he holds this bogus press conference when he really disagrees with the bill he's signing. You know what I'm saying? But then you really have made things worse. You'd have to be careful. If you put an expenditure limit like this, you'd have to be careful. You got to watch them. Because let's be honest. They're not very trustworthy. Don't be shocked by that. Yeah, they're great guys. They're good politicians down there that are trying to do right by the people. But surely, and this is what politicians, I wish they would just understand. Okay, on the whole, people get taken advantage of by politicians more times. I mean, it's not even close, right? It's not even It's not even tit for tat, you know? It's not even close. We get taken advantage of by politicians way more than they ever do anything that's good for us. And that's because, by and large, dishonesty is bred in the halls of that marble palace. Now, you may be a politician listening to this or on podcasts. I know who you are. You may not like me saying that, but history agrees with me. And you know what? That should motivate you to try to make your profession, those of you who want that to be your full-time job, better. And in doing so, you're not down there to worship power. You're not down there to make friends at the expense of your constituents. Okay? You can be congenial, but you can also not go along to get along. Let's see. A comparable constitutional amendment was passed in Colorado. Now, this is huge. Look at this. This would be amazing if Arkansas had something like this. In 1992, Colorado passed the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. The bill provided taxpayer refunds in 1997 through 2000 of over $2.3 billion to the people of Colorado. You know how they pronounce it Colorado? A simulation shows that if a similar formula had been enacted in 1980, Arkansas would have spent over $120 billion less between 1980 and 2008, according to the Tax Foundation and their Taxpayer Bill of Rights calculator. An ideal bill for Arkansas should contain this: growth in government expenditures limited to inflation plus population growth. Any revenue collected over the limit goes immediately back to the taxpayers, and all tax increases have to be approved by a vote of the people or a supermajority vote of the legislature. It says here at the fourth point, supermajority vote of the legislature or popular vote of the people to change the limit or raise/change any taxes. And also, when transferring government programs, the overall limit must be reduced down accordingly. All right, goes on. Over 30 states have enacted some type of tax or expenditure limit. Now, keep that in mind. A tax and expenditure limit. Next time the governor's on AETN, maybe you call in and ask him about a tax and expenditure limit. Say, hey, how come we don't have one of these, and how come you've spent so much more money since you've been governor? That's not very conservative. Let's see here. Now, this is great, and I would encourage you guys to go and to read this over at conduitforcommerce.org, because they have arguments for or against down here at the bottom. Here, let me get to that. I want to show it to you. So, arguments against. So, you're going to hear what they're going to say. I love the arguments against because I think some of them are right. Okay? They're one of the things they're going to say, it shifts fiscal decision-making away from elected representatives. Well, no, it doesn't. It just says that you can't bankrupt our state. I mean, it's a check on government saying this is what you can't do to the people, but you can still decide where the money's going to go. Cause disproportional cuts for non-mandated or general revenue funding programs. Again, you'll just have to make your priorities. I mean, how's that a bad thing? Make it harder for states to raise new revenue. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, that's exactly what a taxpayer expenditure limit or a tax expenditure limit would do. It would make it harder for you to raise revenue. Cause a ratchet down effect where the limit causes the spending base to decrease so that maximum allowable growth will not bring it up to the original level. So that so government would shrink then if it doesn't go up to the original level, then you get less next year and we get more. Sign me up. Result in excess revenues that are difficult to refund in an equitable or cost-effective manner. Now, that is a problem I'm okay with the government attempting to solve. What about you? Where they take more money for us, and now the problem is, well, how are we going to give this back to the people? I don't know. Well, this is going to be hard. This is hard. How do we give this money back to the people? Yeah, okay. I'm okay with letting you guys figure that one out. I mean, that's a great problem to have. Other people say that it'll result in declining government services over time. No, that's not necessarily the case at all. I think what it will do is those who truly need it will get it. Those who don't truly need it, and if we're talking about incentives, you also have to have people that are willing to say you're not entitled to something for free when you can go get a job. That would be the personal responsibility plank of the platform. Fail to provide enough revenues to meet continuing levels of spending in hard economic times. Okay, so in hard economic times, you'd have to cut spending. Arkansas has done that before, by the way. We did it during the downturn. So, I mean, there's nothing really different here. In hard economic times, we all have to tighten the belt, so the government would have to tighten the belt. It's just, the way it is. And then they also say that the bad thing it would shift the state tax base away from the income tax to the more popular but regressive sales tax if voter approval is required. Oh, well, that's fantastic. That's great because, progressive taxes, in my opinion, are bad. Sales taxes are not regressive. They're fair. They're equal. Does not allow local municipals to raise taxes and spend more if those constituents, let's see here. If those constituents aren't for that, is that what I think we got a typo here. Let's see, then we got an increase in health care services will reduce other services proportionally. Anyway, they're going to have all kinds of arguments. Again, this was written in 2015, and it's up at Conduit for Commerce. Again, most of these arguments against are reasons that I would be for it. What about you guys? Anyway, check it out. It's conduitforcommerce.org. They're putting Arkansas small business first. I'm very grateful that they sponsored this segment, Containing Government Growth. It's certainly good, positive ideas moving forward. Let's see, what do we have next? Yes, let's look at government intimidation, the story I didn't get to just a second ago. Don't go anywhere, folks. The Liberty Machine will be back just a moment. Bob Maloney here from ASA News, The Parrot. Breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. Over now to our new on-site reporter, Susan Shenanigans. Susan?
Thanks, Bob. The governor has just announced that a blue ribbon task force is to be formed.
Today, I'm asking your support for a blue ribbon legislative task force to be created and directed to recommend further reform.
Now we go live to the chamber to listen in for more information on the task force.
I hereby call this session into order. First on the agenda for today is the formation of the Blue Ribbon Task Force. Is there anyone who would like to give their thoughts on the task force?
Yes, as someone who's deeply conservative, why is the governor choosing the color blue for this task force? Sounds like he's really a Democrat loyalist. Why not a red ribbon to prove he's a true conservative?
Well, I represent Walmart, and we agree with the color of the task force ribbon. The color blue is best consistent with the Walmart brand.
I object to this choice. Blue is the wrong color ribbon for this task force.
Well, who are you?
I am Mr. P.C. Wrights, and I represent Target, and we want the ribbon to be red, not blue.
Hold it right there. This seems like a tough decision. Why not ask the governor to call a special session at a later date for an important decision as this?
I think this is something worth talking about. I motion that we decide the color of the ribbon today.
I second it. Fine. We can decide it now. Does anyone have any other suggestions for the color of the ribbon?
I think the color should be white.
Whoa. Hold on. Definitely not white.
I agree with Mr. P.C. Wrights. Maybe we should choose green for the farmers.
You like the color green because you are a farmer. I think it should be purple, so we can display how Arkansas is an extremely moderate state.
Why are we even discussing this? Shouldn't we be talking about tax reform instead of wasting time with this?
Well, the people have spoken. They believe this is worth talking about, so we are deciding this now.
Excuse me, sir, but shouldn't the color of the ribbon be rainbow to include all types of people?
Please, silence your phones.
I just received a call from Walmart HQ, and they agree with, what was your name again? My name is Fab Eulis. They agree with Fabulous that the color should be rainbow.
Target concurs with the decision of it being rainbow-colored ribbon.
Is there a motion to make the ribbon rainbow-colored?
I motion to make the color rainbow.
I second the motion. The motion carries because I said so.
The committee will now vote and not be on record to keep the people in the dark. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you for listening to ASA News, The Parrot. Next up, there are reports of a gorilla on top of the Capitol Dome demanding massive sums of taxpayer cash. His name? Medicaid expansion.
PHP Parody.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Some of your comments on Facebook have got me cracking up because of our new setup here, or it's not our new setup. It's just I'm on the other side of the glass. I'm normally over there doing the show. Okay, Joe's on vacation. David on Facebook writes, "It looks like you're in a closet at the Capitol. It'd be a good place to broadcast." Hey, maybe not. Hang on a second. Yeah, that wouldn't be that bad. Okay. What else do we have? Let's see. I just want to say hi to people who are listening. Alex, Gene, David, Lavita, Melissa. Thank you guys so much for listening. James, hi, he says, howdy, Paul. Hi, James. How are you? Then we have Ed writing, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. You are exactly right. Stay tuned at 5 o'clock. I'm going to let you listen to the governor on AETN. Some very liberty-minded citizen, great patriot, decided to record what Asa was saying last night on their phone, and so it's good. But before we do, let's get to this real quick, okay? This is very interesting. Silgan. Anybody know about Silgan? This is a follow-up to yesterday out of Fort Smith. They're getting $38 million from Fort Smith, a private company, corporate welfare. City directors on Monday cast a $38 million lure in hopes of landing a new industry to generate jobs, according to the Democrat Gazette and Dave Hughes. In a special meeting, they passed a resolution. They didn't even know who the name of the company was, I think, before the meeting. $38 million in industrial development revenue bonds. Silgan plastic food containers. The company would move to Fort Smith if they build a 100,000 square foot plant, and if they deploy 150 people. So $38 million for 150 jobs. Does that make sense to anybody out there? That'll make sense to me. You know how many people I could employ with $38 million? Let me say that again. Do you have any idea how many people I could employ with $38 million? It'd be a heck of a lot more than 150 people. These ideas are not good. They're not good ideas, but they keep being tried because the politicians and government bureaucrats and officials love it because they are seen as creating jobs when they have nothing to do with it. The private corporations love it because you have people dumb enough to just give you a guaranteed revenue stream. Silgan Holdings, Silgan Plastic Food Containers, their parent company's based in Stamford, Connecticut. They had more than $3.6 billion in net sales last year. You see, that's another thing. That right there that makes me mad, too. Does that make anybody mad? You have $3.6 billion in sales, and, we're going to sweeten the pot with $138 million, with just $38 million. $38 million bucks? I mean, that's not even a lot of money to them. Now, I know it's sales and not profit, but you get my point. At some point, it's a lot of money to us, right? I mean, that $38 million, Asa Hutchinson's going around bragging about $50 million in tax cuts, and I gave you another $50 million in tax cuts. I mean, if people, the city of Fort Smith is playing around with $38 million, I mean, that should show you how insignificant his $50 million tax cut is, let alone $150 million. It's not that much money compared. And, it's $38 million in incentives. It's incentives. They say incentives like, well, that's not real money. That's not real consequences. It's just an incentive. It's like monopoly money. That's the way they think of taxpayers. It's like we're playing Monopoly. and there's no real consequences to our children's future here. Folks, we got one more hour coming your way next. Don't go anywhere.
Rush, Glenn.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
One of the major catalysts of spending here in Washington County is the sheriff's budget. That's divided into two pieces. It's the sheriff's general budget and then the jail. He has asked for a $2 million increase for the fiscal year of 2018 in the budget. There was an amendment to try to cut that in half. And also an amendment to it's budgeted to give Washington County employees a 3.5% raise.
Wow.
And there was an amendment to try to lower that to 3%. Those two spending reductions failed. And
sounds like those are two spending. Those are reductions off of the increase. So it sounds like it would have still been more money.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. And so when those reductions and increases failed, I feel like that really galvanized a lot of people against for seeing that budget through. And really, what stood out to everyone in the crowd was just the unpreparedness of debating this budget. There was a lot of justices that were having ideas about how to reduce spending and how to improve the budget, and how to reduce the increases once again, and how to try to move this forward. And you're in the crowd and you're looking around and you're like, yeah, these all sound like great ideas. Why has this not been considered before this very moment?
Yeah,
and I believe at one point it was talked, there's a lot that goes into these budgets. Hopefully, there's a lot of labor that goes into them. I'm not going to say there's a lot of thought that went into this budget, but apparently there's a lot of labor. I think somebody finally said that, this is a product of several months, 6 meetings, and $18,000 of the county taxpayers' money in just preparing the budget, and this is the product that we got. And I have not been personally present at any of the budget meetings, but to see that final product walked out into public, like I said, Paul, I'm just absolutely embarrassed for Washington County today.
Wow.
And I just hope that the justices go back in and take this a lot more seriously. We have a county judge here, Judge Joseph Wood, who's doing just an excellent job. And, he's trimmed, last night they said $850,000 off of his budget.
Wow.
His department's budget. And so he's trying to do the best he can. I just am dumbfounded at the lack of support I can see he's getting from these other departments and from the forum court if they're just going to hammer this budget through.
Mm-hmm.
Let me touch on one thing, Paul.
Yeah.
This was mentioned last night in this meeting when the head of the budget committee was defending her job, the one that resigned immediately after the budget was defeated.
Yeah, let me give her name. That's Justice of the Peace, Ava Madison. She's a Democrat, and she resigned last night after the budget failed. Go ahead.
She resigned as the chair of the budget committee.
Yeah, I'm sorry, as the chair. Thank you for correcting me.
In this process where she was describing and defending her job, this is so outrageous to me as a taxpayer. She admits that the only department budget that the budget committee reviewed were if your department was asking for an increase in your spending. if your department's budget remains the same, rolling into the 2018 fiscal year on the budget, they did not even look at those department numbers from what she was saying.
Wow.
Is that not outrageous? They're not even looking for savings in other departments. If you can just report and stay within your budget, they'll just rubber stamp you and move you right along. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, and you know that in a way is apathy or maybe even laziness, because it's just easier to show up to a meeting and pass a budget with a tax increase in it than it is to go through and, you know, put some of these departments, you know, through scrutiny. And I got a feeling this isn't just a Washington County issue. I'm sure this is in some capacity in all 75 counties across the state of Arkansas. We're talking with Patrick Deakins. He was at this Washington County Quorum Court meeting. The news, though, is that the Washington County is now facing a $5 million gap. Let me ask you this. Part of this was because they wanted to give employees in Washington County a raise, a 3.5% raise. Last year, I thought I remember reading a headline about how they increased their health insurance benefits or in some regard. Do you know anything about that?
Only in generalities. Yeah, they increased their health insurance, and I'm pretty sure last year.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome. It's hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here. We want you to help us out. We want you to help you do it. Now, one of the ways you can do it is to text us, 870-275-9799, sound off on Facebook, or you can check us out on Patreon. I know you hear me talk about it. But we want to make the program better. We want to give you extra content. Check us out on patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Okay, so I was teasing it all hour. We do have the audio of Governor Asa Hutchinson, or some audio of Governor Asa Hutchinson on AETN last night. This was taken by a friend of mine on Facebook. Took this video from his phone, and, of course, he sent it over to me. We've got 2 clips here, but I want to start with highways. We started last hour talking about how there's basically kind of a liberal that's agreeing with Asa, and the headline of the podcast that we just put out there of last hour is "Liberals Continue to Agree with Asa." This particular case was on highway funding, but nonetheless. So here we go. This is AETN last night. Hang on a second. I'm in my control panel here. AETN last night, Governor Asa Hutchinson, and this is what it sounded like.
Copying the paper on the inmate mail so that in case there's K2 on the envelope.
I'm going to come back. Here we go. Hang on a second. I'm going to come back to this particular part because he's talking about prisons. Okay, but I'm going to start with this. Again, this is Governor Asa Hutchinson on highways.
Public safety is the most important responsibility I have, and we want to make sure we get it right. Question from Saline County. Speaking of budgets, my personal experience in decades of watching state government is that what is now the Arkansas Department of Transportation, formerly the Highway and Transportation Department, has always had an insatiable appetite. Now, that's not to say that's not warranted, but there's always, we're told, needs of hundreds of millions of dollars of additional highway funds. You have spoken out on that issue in recent months. Where do you see us going with the highway program? Well, I see us having to do an additional highway funding program.
You hear that pause? That's the carefully crafted language generator. Spinning up. It's kind of like you got to spin it up. If you're gonna create carefully crafted language. Anyone ever see Battlestar Galactica when they had to make a jump? They had to spin up their FTL, their faster than light drive or whatever. That's what that pause was. Where do we go from here with the highway money?
Well, I see us having to do an additional highway funding program in the future. If you look back, our first challenge was meeting the federal match. There was $200 million of federal highway funds available. We had to match it with $50 million. And so we had the highway improvement plan last year that did come up with the money for that. Part of it was general revenues for the first time in history. We have an ongoing funding stream. Part of it was using our surplus to meet it. So we met that. But there's a general consensus, and this is both by the Highway Department, but it's also by the Bureau of Legislative Research that looked at it independently, and as well as my task force that I created. And all three looked at it and said there needs to be about $400 million more of annual funds in order to properly maintain and to build the infrastructure we need in our state. So it's a fairly consistent amount that everyone says that is needed in the future. It doesn't have to be done at one point, at one time, and so I see this to be a big issue in the 2019 general session.
Yeah, after he's reelected, he's going to raise taxes.
Look at an additional highway plan and how we can come up with additional revenues.
Revenue.
Maintain our highway.
Right there. Ding, 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 ding. How do we come up with additional revenue? That's what this whole thing is about. Now, give him points for being honest here. I mean, of course, a lot of people may not know that additional revenue means tax hikes. But here's the thing. I mean, this is nothing new. We just know he's not changing his mind. We just know that Asa isn't changing his mind. He goes for more revenue, gets some of it, but doesn't get the gas tax that he wants and doesn't get the internet tax that he wants. And he doesn't want to listen to the people. He doesn't want to say, well, the people's representatives have spoken. No. Instead, he starts to work on the municipal league and getting the city council. Do not think for a moment that the forces that want the internet tax are not the same here, and they're not pushing the municipal league to push the city councils to pass resolutions saying we want an internet tax. And in some cases, you've got state reps who've got city councilmen that are voting for resolutions that are the opposite of the way they voted. It's very awkward, doing everything they can to push their phony arguments. And they're going to do everything they can to push their phony arguments on highways. And the amount of money we're spending on highways is unbelievable. We continue to give them money to do these things. Why would highways need more money just because the cost of gas goes up, which is what they're starting to say? It's targeted for miles driven. Remember the money wasted on trails and median wires that were ripped up a year later at $770,000 a mile. These are stories and incidents out there of just complete waste, and yet they want more money. And the governor says it's not going to come out of general revenues because he goes on.
And the biggest need is really in the farm to market roads. Right. They need to be rebuilt. They need to have an overlay program. It's just going to take money to get that done. And the money's going to come from? Well, it's not going to come from general revenues.
That's a surprising question there. That's a good question. I'm going to where's the money going to come from, Governor? You're talking about revenue. Where's it going to come from? Let's back up and hear that question again, because I think that, again, it's a good question.
Need to be rebuilt. They need to have an overlay program. It's just going to take money to get that done. And the money's going to come from? Well, it's not going to come from general revenues. We allocated. You made that clear. Yeah. We allocated a small portion of general revenues toward highways for the first time in history, but we cannot hurt education. We cannot impede the other needs of our states. There cannot be this gargantuan amount that comes out of general revenues and flows into highways. And that is sometimes the easiest solution for the legislature and everyone to look at and say, well, let's just take the sales tax on tires and used cars and new cars.
Those are great ideas.
Automobiles, and put that toward roads. That's too big of a chunk out of general revenue.
Hang on just one second. Those are specific ideas I know for a fact have been talked about by legislators who are trying to lead. And Asa, I mean, this is why the tax farce is a farce. This is why the tax farce is a farce. You think they're going to consider ideas? So Jim Hendren and the tax farce just got out a list last night as they were listening to this and said, well, okay, so all right, mark that idea out. Asa doesn't like that, so mark that idea. We can't take tires and tire taxes and put that towards roads. We can't take the sale of used cars and put that towards roads. I mean, Ace is essentially saying nope, 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 because we got to pay for Medicaid expansion.
And so there's got to be, in my judgment, additional revenues that can handle that. I think it needs a long discussion as to what that is, and
tax
anything
increases.
That involves any type of a tax or a fee increase needs to go to the voters for approval. Speaking of the budget,
what a cop-out! What a cop-out! Any type of fee or tax increase needs to go to the voters for approval. Well, that means that his legislators, his good old boys, are going to be voting for something to send to the public. And Asa wants to pretend, well, that wouldn't be a tax. I didn't vote. I'm not supporting a tax increase. I want to let the people decide. My constituents, my constituency. That is unacceptable to me, and it should be unacceptable to you. Do not buy this argument. Let me tell you how you defeat it. Do you support a tax increase? Oh, no. I don't support a tax increase, but I support the idea for the people to decide. Okay, well, if you don't support a tax increase, why in the world would you not use the power that your people – do your people support a tax? Well, no, the people – they don't want tax increases. They elected me on principles. Okay, so if you don't let the people decide this vote and all the misinformation that goes around, there's a 100% chance – because you're against tax increases, right? There's a 100% chance you get what you want, which is no tax increases. So why not vote that way? Well, I want the people to decide. See, these guys, when they use this, when Asa uses it, well, I'll let the people decide. What they're essentially saying is they're doing what the Democrats do, which is, well, we're for democracy because we're Democrats. And that's what they do. And they ignore, no, this is a republic. We have democratic elections, sure. Yeah, we do have democratic elections based on tax increases. But let's just get to where you're responsible. Where does the responsibility lie? They don't want to govern. Asa doesn't want to govern because he doesn't want to have to make the tough choices. He wants to push for tax increases. He is for the tax increase, but he wants to say, but I'm going to let the people decide. Well, we all know how convoluted these elections get. We all know the misinformation. We also know how you guys write ballot titles. And I know for a fact, because we saw the bill that Dan Douglas was pushing, the ballot title was deceptive. I have audio when Dan Douglas is confronted in committee, Dan Douglas doing Ace's bidding, he's confronted in committee about the deceptive ballot title, how it says nothing about a tax increase and you'd be paying more money. He's confronted about it. Do you know what he says? He says, I'm sure our good friends at Conduit for Action will make sure that everybody knows what this bill or what this vote would do. Now, folks, that is insulting. That is unbelievable. First off, you know how much money issue advocacy takes, number one. And number two, he's essentially just conceding that we shouldn't expect honest ballot titles when it comes to taking more money from our citizens. So I don't trust Dan, and I don't trust Asa here. But their argument is so flawed. If they're really against the tax increase, you would never refer it to the people. You would use the power of the legislative branch. It is unbelievable that they're acting like Democrats. They're using Democrat arguments that I have defeated time and time again when we threw Democrats out of office, by the way, and put Republicans in their place based on their voting record. What do you want to bet we can do it again? What do you want to bet? What do you want to bet we can do it again together? All right. Moving on. We have another clip from Asa Hutchinson. You ready? Has to do with enhanced carry. Hold on. Hold on to your hats, guys. Hang on one second. I got to hit stop here. And here is Asa Hutchinson describing such a wonderful process.
We also have a concealed carry law that allows for that with a permit. Right. I think it's shown to be very beneficial. Our Kansans like it. They want that. I think we need to make it less burdensome to the extent that we can, so it's never a burden to protect yourself. And then this last legislative session, we passed what we call enhanced carry, which really which expands its Second Amendment rights again, so that it increased the venues in which you can carry a firearm in a concealed fashion to protect yourself, but it's going to require additional training. Is that the right balance? I think time will tell, so you always have to adjust things from time to time, but I think in the end, it wasn't a pretty process, but in the end, I think we did strike a good balance.
No joke, it wasn't a pretty process. What did he say about enhancing them? Hang on a second. I want to say this.
That with a permit, right? I think it's shown to be very beneficial. Our Kansans like it. They want that. I think we need to make it less burdensome.
What about open carry?
To the extent that we can, so it's never a burden to protect yourself.
Well, you've made it a burden, sir.
And then this last legislative session, we passed what we call enhanced carry, which really which expands its Second Amendment rights again, so that
it expands Second Amendment rights again. According to him, not according to me, not according to a lot of other patriots across this state, it expanded Second Amendment rights. Somebody on Facebook said, how do you expand shall not be infringed? That's a good question. How do you expand on shall not be infringed?
Increased the venues in which you can carry a firearm in a concealed fashion to protect yourself, but it's going to require additional training. Is that the right balance? I think time will tell. So.
No, he thinks it is. That was his idea, his and State Representative Bob Ballinger's. And Asa Hutchinson doesn't trust you with a gun unless you do what he says first.
You always have to adjust things from time to time, but I think in the end, it wasn't a pretty process, but in the end, I think we did strike a good balance.
I would think you and Charlie Collins have had some long discussions on this issue. He kind of carried the water on a lot of those bills.
He did. He carried it, and I thought his original bill went too far.
His original bill was just simply going to allow people who already had the permission slip concealed carry permit to carry on a college campus. If you're a professor, not a student, a professor. And Asa said, no. Oh, no, I don't trust professors with concealed handgun. They need to go through additional training. He calls that an expansion of Second Amendment rights. What a joke. What a joke. And you know what? Charlie Collins went along with it because they protected the governor. Because the governor had an honest disagreement with him. And at the same time, they weren't going to be seen Republicans criticizing other Republicans. No, don't do like the far left does. Compromise. Compromising Republicans. It's really sad. Asa went on to talk about State Representative Charlie Collins.
Made some suggestions that we might modify it in this way. Ultimately, it got some momentum, and the end result was, Charlie Collins, I think, really showed himself to be a solid legislator and a good team player that fought hard for the Second Amendment and expanding those rights, but did it in a very reasonable fashion.
A very reasonable fashion. Charlie was unreasonable first. No, he wasn't. He was fine. We're unreasonable, though. Actually being for the Second Amendment. It's unreasonable. That was Asa last night on AETN. How much money do they get from the government? Anybody? We got to take a break. Back in a moment. iTex is your first
choice for cost-effective IT services. Protecting your business means protecting your data. Are you tired of unpredictable and expensive spikes in IT spending? Using iTex will prevent downtime and loss of employee productivity and do it all with an affordable, predictable budget. iTex is the premier managed service provider for small and medium businesses. They help their clients put IT to work to earn your business more money, and you should contact them today for a free consultation. 870-336-9778. That's 870-336-9778 or itexusa.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, Loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody. Need to get something off your chest? Then call or text Paul now, 870-275-9799.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Hang on a second. I've got host duties, or I've got production duties and host duties, and I'm going to hit the button here. Okay, so real quick, this article was interesting to me. Wedding centers planners are dropping a lawsuit. Did you hear about this one? A married couple in Pulaski County who sued so that they could build a business to host weddings. They have asked the judge to dismiss the case without a ruling. I found this interesting. In March, the project coordinator hired by the couple submitted a site plan to the zoning authority, the Pulaski County, and basically they didn't want anything to do with it. They said no, because at a public hearing, neighbors voiced their worries. This was in a rural area, a lot of acreage, One of the neighbors is Pulaski County Circuit Judge Kathleen Compton, who lives with her husband, U.S. District Judge Billy Roy Wilson, on 15 acres that were butted up next to where this wedding business would go. They worried about people driving drunk. And I don't know, is this government, I thought to myself, I wonder if the fact that they were judges and didn't want this business have anything to do with the fact that Pulaski County would not let them open up a business out there so people could get hitched. Folks, we got half an hour left. Don't go anywhere. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
You know, this is going on a limb. I'm not too factually sure on this, but I believe all county employees, they went through a compensation consultation with an outside group, and I think they all got, they mentioned last night during the meeting, around 8% raises to try to equate them to outside jobs. So this was basically an adjustment on top of raises already received previous.
Wow. And now they're $5 million short. They have a spending problem, a textbook definition of a spending problem, and their solution is to try to find more revenue, not to say we have to go and spend less. So Patrick, where do you think Washington County goes from here? I mean, you're a citizen, of Washington County. What do they do next? I mean, what are their plans? Are they going to look at other departments and try to make cuts in other departments?
Well, fortunately, the millage was passed last night, which to me left the millage the same.
Okay.
So
no increase.
To me, for at least in the foreseeable future, for at least the next year, your property taxes are safe. Now what they've got to do is those justices have got to get real serious about that budget, and they have until the end of the year to do that. So they're really down into a time constraint now. So, what we need to do as citizens is we need to get involved. Somebody turned to me in the audience and said, however much I hate to do it, we're going to have to come down here for these big budget meetings and see what's going on and try to help out in this process.
Yeah.
And just more broadly, it was discussed quite a bit last night, Paul, and I'm sure it's a problem for a lot of other people around the state, but there's being really some battle lines drawn between the municipalities versus the counties versus the state, and how these different revenue streams and tax dollars are allocated between those levels. And particularly in Washington County, one of the aggravations of the county is that they do not feel like they get their fair share. And as these cities grow and annex more citizens in, that lowers their tax dollar pool and their allocations. And so they're having a little bit of trouble budgeting within those limits. And so, that's just another thing that I think is going to be growing pains for a lot of people around the state. We're going to have to keep our eyes on.
You're exactly right. I've once heard it said that politicians who push for tax increases, they do so because they don't have the guts to govern. It sounds like we've got to have people with guts all across the state, but especially in Washington County, to say, okay, You know, our knee-jerk reaction is not going to be to raise your taxes because we're spending too much money. Let's get our spending under control, and let's treat this the way we would a household budget. I think that's the path forward.
Really
and Patrick Deakins making an incredible amount of sense, giving us a first-hand account from the meeting last night in Washington County. I appreciate it, Patrick. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate you.
All righty. Folks, it's Johnny Cash Friday. That's
even the biggest redneck in Arkansas doesn't want to carry guns in Razorback Station. Yeah, Razorback Stadium. Yeah.
You're talking to the wrong rednecks, I think, because, I mean, I know people. I know people that would like to defend themselves. I'm one of them. I'm one of them, folks. Let me get rid of this graphic here. I'm one of them. I was at an A-State game. I don't know. It was probably one of the first games of the year, and this was after all this I lived it. I was down at the Marble Palace. I was covering this nonsense, and what that whole gun debate made me realize. How vulnerable we are. And keep in mind, this is before the Mandalay Bay. This is before what happened up there. And I know there's been other mass shooting events, but, I mean, in public places where people are gathering, to have a good time. I mean, obviously, like, why, if you're a terrorist or you're a, crazy person or whatever happened in Las Vegas, it's fish in a barrel. So I'm standing there. It's pregame, and I'm looking around at all the people, and I'm like, I'm not armed. And this is in this day and age where we live. This is so enticing to somebody. I mean, for these sick people, it's like. You got to try to put your head. You try to put yourself in some of these sick people's minds. And I know, speaking of sick people, Charles Manson died this week. But do you understand? Some of these people, yeah, some of them snap. A lot of them are on psychotic drugs. A lot of people think that the antipsychotic drugs are making them psychotic. Can you imagine seeing? And this is how evil we have to. We can't be afraid to think about the potential evil here. Can you imagine seeing a throng of people and salivating for their death? That's a dark thought. I understand that. But that's kind of where I went. I was like, for somebody who is sick and is out to kill, events like that are absolutely irresistible to them. It's like putting a ribeye steak in front of a dog or something. You know what I'm saying? There are people out there who are like that. And I just thought to myself, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I felt really vulnerable. I felt, well, I'm having to give up my rights to come watch a football game. And I don't like that. And I don't like how the government says I'm not responsible enough to protect myself. Now, granted, thankfully, I'm not forced to go to the game, right? It is still voluntary, and these are the rules that they're putting out there. But make no mistake about it. An armed society is a polite society, and you say what you want to. People are less safe. The guy in Texas that killed all those people in that church with an assault rifle, right, or whatever they called it, an assault rifle, was taken out with a gun that was the exact same. It's about the person behind it. It's about the person behind it. And the Democrat argument to this is, well, if everybody has a gun, when the cops show up to try to do something about the situation, somebody is going to get shot. Well, you know what? That's a risk that I would take. And I'll tell you something else. More times than not, where were the cops at Mandalay Bay? They show up to draw chalk around the bodies in a lot of ways. I mean, I know they were storming that hotel room, okay? Where were the police? Where were the police at that church shooting? Where were they? Were they there? No. Oh, right. Yeah, they weren't there. Folks, the bottom line is, I love police officers, but most of the time they show up to draw chalk around your bodies. I know they don't do that anymore, but you get the point. Most of the time, that's what happens. You also understand that it is court precedent in this country that the police don't have to save you. I'm not saying that they wouldn't, but some haven't. And you've tried to take action because this idea of protect and serve, and the court rules that the police officer isn't obligated to help. My point is what else is there besides what you can control and your own personal responsibility to protect or defend yourself and carry a gun? Okay? Like, what else is there? Why would we want anything else? As freedom-loving Americans that really understand that you are responsible for you. And see, and what the left gets upset about with this gun is potential crisis. And it's really a shame that the communication is broke. I mean, because why do you want to arm yourself? Well, in case I need it, because there's the potential of risk out there to me. The left sees that and they say, oh, you've got a gun. That's a potential risk to me because you may use it or you may shoot me accidentally. And see, you're never going to eliminate risk. And so you can't legislate my freedoms away because something bad might happen and I might do something. Unless we want to get into Minority Report and Tom Cruise, in that movie about predicting crime. But you know what I'm saying? Your freedoms end where mine begins and vice versa. And there is room for people to carry a gun in that scenario. The left doesn't see it that way. Democrats don't see it that way. Do I have any more of this? Because I want to move on.
So, overall, I'm going to expand that a little bit, talking about instead of one individual legislator, the entire legislature. Have you felt pretty good about your working relationship so far as governor with the 135 members of the legislature?
Oh, absolutely. They've been good team players. They've fought hard for their principles, but you look at the agenda that I ran on, and our first session, they passed my agenda. The second session, they passed my agenda. A lot of surprises came up along the way. There were disagreements, but in the end, what we've accomplished.
All right, yes, there we go. That's Asa. They've passed my agenda. Well, hey, by the way, what were your voting records? What were your scorecards? How did you guys score by passing that guy's agenda? How'd you do? How'd you do on CFCs? How'd you do on family councils? How'd you do on AFPs? How'd you do on American Conservative Union? You passed his agenda. And multiple organizations said that it was bad. Overall, it was bad for the state of Arkansas and bad for limited government conservative principles, whether social, whether economic, or whether liberty, transparency, it was bad. A lot of frankness in what he's saying if you were down there and you lived it. A lot of frankness. You guys know who Senator Jason Rapert is? Senator Jason Rapert is a senator from Central Arkansas, Conway area, Bigelow, I think. And he recently penned an op-ed. Let me find this here. Yeah, here it is. He recently penned an op-ed I thought was interesting. It was an op-ed not directed at Arkansas and the state policies here. Senator Rapert was directing his policies toward Washington, D.C. I just found it interesting. Because right now, Arkansas is actually hurting because we are the highest taxed and highest regulated state of the neighboring states that touch us. And so really, we've got a ton of work to do, and we've had 2 legislative sessions and have very little to show for it except for continued Medicaid expansion, Obamacare, more financial obligations in the future, and a measly $150 million tax cut, they say, but they also increased spending by $435 million over that time, which means government has grown, and it hasn't even stayed the same size. It's grown. And that $150 million tax cut is going to come back to bite you because you're spending too much money. That's not conservative, to cut taxes and then spend more money. Anyway, let's read some of what Senator Rapert has to say. Relief needed. Tax reform will aid Americans. Sorry, I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold, so I keep having to turn my mic off and sniff here. He writes, time and time again, politicians have promised federal tax reform and tax relief to American citizens, only to break those promises and leave American families and business owners shouldering tremendous burdens of taxation at the federal, state, and local levels around the country. Wow. Could that happen in Arkansas? Has it? I'm going to say yeah. This has already happened in the state of Arkansas. You want to know how I know? Because I was there. I know that it's already happened in the state of Arkansas, breaking promises, because the whole reason that we have a tax force right now trying to study things is because they executed ACE's agenda. And I don't even have to analyze it that much. All I got to do is take them at their word from this point forward, which I don't believe, but let's just take them at their word from this point forward. From this point forward, they're going to keep their promises. They're going to keep them. But we won't actually realize them or reap the benefits of them until 2019 or later. Governor Hutchinson was elected in 2014. 2014. He was elected in 2014. And we did not have tax reform in the first session. We didn't get tax reform this last session because he said we can't do it. We need a tax force or a tax farce. And so he is asking a political revolution in this state that started in 2010 when Democrats lost time after time again. We are not going to get real tax reform right now, conservatively, pun intended, until 2019. That's assuming that whatever they pass goes into effect immediately. And you and I both know it'll probably not go into effect until July at the earliest, or maybe July of 2020. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how I can tell you that when Jason Rapert starts directing this piece towards the politicians in D.C., that time and time again they've promised federal tax reform and relief to the American citizens only to break those promises and leave American families and businesses shouldering tremendous burdens of taxation at the federal, state, and local levels around the country. I'm telling you, so far, it's looking like it's going to take 10 years and 2 general assemblies with massive Republican majorities and a Republican governor for 4 years before you get meaningful tax legislation? Sounds to me like we're being hung out to dry. But what does he say in next sentence? He ignores, he doesn't believe this. Senator Rapert doesn't believe me. He would disagree with what I just said based on his article. He says that I'm proud of Asa Hutchinson. I'm proud that Governor Asa Hutchinson in the Arkansas legislature recently passed the largest income tax cut in Arkansas history, providing much-needed relief to our citizens. $150 million, growing government by $430 million. $150 million. You can go to the movies, and you can get a Big Mac this year that you couldn't get before Asa had his way. Have it your way. I guess that would be, you could get a Whopper that you couldn't get. You can get a Whopper and you can go to the movies, there's your tax cut. Enjoy. It's the largest in history. Well, we have had Democrats running this place for 100 years. So, yeah, I mean, maybe it needs to be a lot more than $150 million. Senator Rapert goes on, the time is now for President Trump and the United States Congress to work together and extend relief to all hardworking families around the country by passing the GOP tax reform bill, which includes the recent amendment by Senator Tom Cotton to finally end Obamacare, which is, by the way, fantastic. I applaud Senator Cotton. The individual mandate is the heart of Obamacare, folks. It is so immoral. It is an immoral thing that the government would force us to do to buy a product. It is a totalitarian concept from people who think that they should be able to control you and put the price of a life and equate it to an insurance policy that you owe the government tribute just for breathing air and having a beating heart in your chest. It is an abomination to the very concept of the founding of this country. The Obamacare individual mandate. Yes, all those things. Jason Rapert says, I joined Governor Hutchinson in support of the GOP tax reform legislation and believe the following policy points from the reform package are needed to create jobs, help families, and keep more money in our own pockets, and allow reinvestment into small businesses, which are the backbone of our economy. Now, let me stop here. Keep in mind, this is Jason Rapert, Senator Rapert, saying this to Tom Cotton in Washington, D.C., and Donald Trump and everybody else. And I just got to say, like, can we practice what we preach here a little bit? This stuff is not happening in Arkansas, and you're pretending that it is, and it's simply not happening. He goes on, make it easy. We need a tax code that is simple and easy to understand. We have that in Arkansas? No. The average taxpayer has to wade through 241 pages of instructions to file a basic tax form. Staggering 94% of families use professional help to do their taxes. Taxpayers spend 6 billion hours each year compiling the tax code. Jason Rapert goes on, under the GOP plan, 95% of Americans will be able to file their tax return on a single page of paper without having to keep receipts, fill out schedules, or track endless paperwork. The GOP plan will give hardworking Americans their time and money back, make it fair. The GOP plan is going to end the rigged system that has only benefited the wealthy and well-connected. It will restore fairness by streamlining the tax code and ending special interest tax breaks and loopholes. Yeah, I can get behind that. Again, Senator Rapert, maybe he's planning a run for Congress or statewide office or something. I'm not sure here. Again, it's just very – I mean, he did heap a lot of praise on Asa. Maybe that's all this was for, was just to heap praise on Asa and try to associate Asa with, what may be a huge Trump victory by the end of this year. You know, he is polling 20 points behind Donald Trump in the state of Arkansas among Republicans. Asa is. He lost 17 points among Republicans since April. Asa is. Maybe that's what this is. I don't know. Or maybe Jason Rapert's going to run for something. I don't know. Let's see. Winning again. Our business tax rate is the highest in the developed world. We are dead last. Our rate is 15 percentage points higher than the average in developed nations. See, all this is good stuff. Bringing it home. Let's see what else. Listen to this. Our tax system penalizes companies that bring wealth they have earned overseas back to America. As a result, corporations have parked trillions of dollars in foreign countries, money that could and should be brought back inside the United States. Now, you can apply this exact same idea to Arkansas. I mean, we approach it, well, businesses don't want to come here unless we give them taxpayer money. No, businesses don't want to come here because we're taxed too much. It's the same principle. People don't come here because they are avoiding our high tax and high regulatory burden. He goes on. Every year of my life, the national debt has continued to increase and now has grown to an astronomical level of $20.5 trillion. If America keeps using the exact same system of taxation that we have used that has fostered the unsustainable national debt and economic malaise of the failed Democrat welfare state, We will keep getting the same result. Okay, failed Democrat welfare state. These are buzzwords because Arkansas believes in the Democrat welfare state because we enabled and support Obama's signature domestic achievement, and Senator Jason Rapert has multiple times. It is time for the Republican leadership in Congress to ensure we pass tax reform and rid the nation of Obamacare's individual mandate. I agree. Please contact your U.S. senators. But again, oh my gosh, this is so frustrating to me to come out against the Democrat welfare state and the Obamacare individual mandate in paragraphs right next to each other when you've supported Arkansas's dependency and trust in Obamacare. It's just all because of the hospitals. It's really frustrating. It's very frustrating. Sorry, I pounded the desk here too much, and my headphones gave out. That's not good. Anyway, Senator Jason Rapert interjecting himself in the D.C. Tax reform debate in a special to the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Oh, wow, we got to take a break, folks. I've gone way over. Back in a minute.
Who's next to Zipline?
Me, and I'm really excited about this.
Sir, I'm sorry. The Zipline has a 350-pound weight limit, and frankly, I do not think it would be safe for you.
Oh, that's okay. I self-identify as 180 pounds, so it's cool.
Sir, that doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm afraid we can't let you ride the Zipline. You're too heavy. I'm sorry.
I can't believe this. I thought we had evolved as a society. I thought this was America, but I guess this is just my plight. First slavery, and now fat shaming.
Sir, again, I'm really sorry.
You listen to me. If you don't let me ride, not only will I sue this company for discrimination, I will sue you for damages because right now my feelings are so hurt and I feel embarrassed because I'm holding up the line.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Watch it, mister.
Look, okay, I'm sorry. I just don't think it would be safe for you.
You don't understand. I self-identify as skinny. So you have to let me ride the zip line. The Constitution says so. I get to define my own reality.
Okay, fine, whatever. Ride the zip line. Mike, let this man ride the zip line.
Thank you. Now watch as my self-identity trumps your bigotry. See you on the other side, racist. Here I go! Doctor, thank goodness. What's the prognosis?
Sir, we've done everything we can, and you only have seconds to live.
No, you cannot say that. I do not self-identify as a dead person.
PHP Parody.
Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to Talk Radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. We're going to wrap things up here. Thank you so much for being with us. I want to remind you guys, feel free. You can follow me on Twitter. It's at Paul Harrell 1776. That's at Paul Harrell 1776. If you haven't done that, I would appreciate it. Also, give us a like on Facebook. All right, give us a like on Facebook. I appreciate all of you guys being with us today on the program. We're going to be back here tomorrow for Wednesday, and it's one of my favorite shows of the year because I get to read George Washington's Thanksgiving Day Proclamation and his reliance on divine providence. Abraham Lincoln's Thanksgiving Day Proclamation. You guys are going to love it. Don't miss tomorrow's broadcast. We'll be broadcasting Happy Thanksgiving to those of you who won't make the show because you're going to be traveling. Safe travels to you and your family. If this is your last broadcast to hear this week, we'll see you on Monday. Otherwise, we'll be here tomorrow, Wednesday. Arkansas, be safe.